Welcome in. It's Big Ten Today. We're presented by Gatorade on this Friday. Great to have you with us. I'm Dave Revson. This is a day that basketball fans have been looking forward to, Iowa fans in particular, and a showdown they had been hoping for much of the year. It is the Final Four from Dallas, our big story today. Game one pits LSU and Virginia Tech. That one tips off at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It will be followed by the marquee matchup. Undefeated South Carolina taking on Player of the Year, Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Let's head down to Dallas now and join our crew led by Megan McEwen.
Multiple stars on display in the Lone Star State, home to the women's Final Four. Dallas, Texas, American Airlines Center getting ready to show you the national semifinals this evening. Hi, and welcome on into the concourse of American Airlines Center. Stephanie White, Christy Winterscott, Megan McEwen here with you. The day has finally arrived. Iowa takes on South Carolina in the second national semifinal this evening. Christy and Steph, you both have played in Final Fours during your college careers. Christy, what does a day like this look like in the shoes of a college player?
I'll tell you what it feels like. It's super exciting because for me, I had seen the Final Four on TV. I had seen the Cheryl Millers and everyone else play in this game and in these games, and I just wanted to do it. So when I was running out for the Final Four game, I just remembered what it looked like, and I was wondering as a youngster what it felt like, and man, it was exciting. I think it was times 10 of what I thought it would be, but in that moment you have to take that in for what it is, absorb it, feel it, but also stay locked in to what the team needs from you to do. And it was a fun experience. I'm glad not a lot of people get to experience Final Four, but I'm glad I did, and it was super exciting. But you have to stay focused and be task oriented.
And game day is like, it's finally a relief that it's here, because you've been going through all of the stuff, right? The media, the events, and if you're Caitlin Clark, certainly the media junket of Player of the Year, things that you've had to do. So it's finally game time. There are usually a little bit of jitters as soon as the ball goes up, but then that team that settles in, once you get going up and down the floor, that is a team that has the advantage. Now, for South Carolina, they've been here. They understand what this environment is like. They understand how to compartmentalize and lock in. For Iowa, it's their first experience. How quickly can they turn that page and lock into the game is going to be key.
The good news for Iowa is they're used to playing in front of massive crowds. They average more than 11,000 fans this year. They've played in front of huge arenas, sellouts when it comes to NBA arena sizes, but nothing like this. We're looking forward to seeing how they'll match up in this game. But that being said, there's so much that goes into a Final Four appearance. Media obligations, there's parties to attend. What has stuck out to you most, Steph, about what we've seen so far with this media circus?
I think it's over the top, right? It's certainly, and I think every year, particularly this year, because of the excitement surrounding the matchups. You've got new blood. Everybody in the country has wanted to see Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, who have been two of the premier college players since they stepped foot on campus. So there's a lot more hoopla surrounding this year's tournament. And then it's amplified on social media. So all of these things. And I think that players that can stay locked in, who can stay compartmentalized, who can really understand, hey, we're here about business. This is another business trip. Enjoy this experience because you might not ever get it again, but it's game time. We got to find a way to lock in.
Absolutely. When you think about locking in and what that entails, it's different for each player, okay? For me, I was the one who was jumping around the locker room and asking everybody, are you ready? If you're ready, I'm ready, let's go. And then other people were very cerebral, very calm in their cubbies and just kind of trying to visualize everything. But let everybody just be their authentic selves. Let everybody be their best selves. And I think that's what helps the team. I mean, when you have all the pieces in place, everybody's bringing their different role to the table, whether that be statistical or mental or as a leader or as the person who's giving energy or the person has the energy, but they're using it like a duck under the water with the feet moving really tough, but on top they're poised and cerebral. You have to accept that for what it is. But everybody has to be on their A game, whatever that is for you, and the coach knows. And I think for Iowa, they have 11 returning players to this roster, so they haven't been here to the Final Four, but they've been together. And I think that bodes well for Iowa in that regard.
Yeah, they're experienced. They've played together. They've played in big environments. They've played in big games. Certainly this one of the biggest, but I think that you can lean on that experience.
Now you're at a point where, okay, let's stop talking about it. Let's just go out there and do it. And Iowa has been able to do it, getting to the Final Four for the first time in 30 years. Yeah. The last time a Big Ten team was in the Final Four was Maryland in 2015, the inaugural season of the Terps being in the Big Ten Conference. As good as the league has been over the course of the last 10 years, the biggest knock on the Big Ten has been, well, what do you do in the NCAA tournament? Do you get a team to the Final Four? On that note, Steph, what's the impact of the fact that Iowa is now in the Final Four? Not to mention, there were 3 different Big Ten teams between Iowa, Ohio State, and Maryland competing to get to the Final Four.
It's big. And I think perception changed throughout the course of the year on what Big Ten basketball was. Certainly the Big Ten has been pushing and challenging that narrative for a long time. But it's big now that you do have that team that stepped foot into the Final Four. Certainly 3 teams that were knocking on the door, that were 1 game away. But you get somebody that comes in. Certainly I anticipate Iowa having a tremendous experience, a tremendous outing, against South Carolina. But I think it's big for the conference. And it's more of then, hey, we've been talking about it for a long time. Now we got to put up, right, or shut up. And I think we put up and finally gotten a team in there.
Yeah, and I think when you have a team like Iowa who fell short last year, and you have players like Monica Sanano who came back for her 5th year for a reason, not just to play again and get some cardio. She wanted to come back and compete. She wanted to come back and advance further than last year. I mean, why else would you come back? It's like run it back. It's like when you're playing pickup, you lose that game, hey, check it up, run it back. And I think that's what Iowa is looking to do. They want to get better. They want to take it a step further, and since they're here, they may as well go for it.
And you come back with a different fire.
That's right. But when you lose it, like that's what happened with us. I don't know with Purdue.
Yep.
We lost it the year before, and then we came back and we're like, we got measured for rings and everything, Steph. And
that's right.
And then we didn't get it that next year. They measured us for rings, and we were like, we're going to get these rings, because we felt the sting of being denied that fact. So I think there's a lot that goes to it, but again, the experience of Iowa playing together, I think, is a great thing. But I also think that, you got to be prepared. You got to be prepared, and you got to be able to sustain your mental focus and toughness.
And to that point, this Iowa starting 5 has played together for the last 3 years. They've started 90 games together. In this day and age, the way college basketball is set up with the transfer portal and whatnot, that's nearly impossible.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll see anything like this again. It's certainly changing quickly, and I think that this is very unique. I also think it's very unique, though, to the types of players that Lisa Bluder recruits. And one of the things I respect so much about Lisa Bluder and her staff is that they don't stray away from who they are. They recruit high-character, highly skilled players who fit their system, who fit Iowa women's basketball and the surrounding community. And they stay together because they build that chemistry. They build the importance of one another and the importance of the camaraderie. And I truly believe that is one of the reasons that they have been able to sustain success for so long.
Yeah, and when you're talking about Lisa Bluder, I mean, she just empowers these women not just to play basketball, okay? She empowers them to be leaders of themselves so that they can then lead each other, right? So you can't ask the players to be their best selves and to do all these things and to hold themselves accountable if they're not first looking in the mirror and asking that of themselves. And then they can go and say to their teammates, hey, you got to do better on that play. But there's integrity behind what they're saying. And I think when you have a leader like Lisa Bluder who is setting them up for success, not just here at the Final Four, not just while they're wearing an Iowa uniform, but for years down the line, when they can give back to this game that has given them so much, that's what it's all about. And Lisa Bluder, I always tell her that she really means a lot to me because of what she represents for these young women and the women behind the players that are coming up.
Coach Bluder is one of the best in the country when it comes to players understanding their role and having those roles defined, which is such a huge key to success. And when you make it down the road this far, you have to trust each other. And when your roles are defined, you can get closer to trusting each other. Welcome back to Big Ten Today in the Lone Star State, Dallas, Texas, home of the 2023 Women's Basketball Final Four. Iowa and South Carolina getting ready to take on each other in the second semifinal matchup this evening. And welcome back to American Airlines Center. Stephanie White, Christy Winter-Scott, Megan McEwen here with you. Iowa, South Carolina, South Carolina undefeated on the season, the #1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament this season, and they feature one of the best players in the country. Aaliyah Boston, the center, was the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year. She was the reigning Naismith Player of the Year until Caitlin Clark dethroned her earlier this week, being named that National Player of the Year. That being said, Caitlin Clark, one of the best point guards in the country. Boston, one of the best front court players in the country. Two different styles, so they're not going to be facing each other, but Christy, what's the impact of having two of the best talents in our game facing each other?
I love it. I'm here for it. When you have a player like Caitlin Clark, who is so dynamic with what she brings to the table for her team, I think it's stated over and over again, especially through this postseason, the invaluable assets that she presents for the Iowa Hawkeyes, it can't be measured. She does so many great things, and even with her presence on the floor, she doesn't have to have the basketball in her hands for the defense to morph to her presence on the court. So she's going to draw a lot of attention just by being out there. She plays a ton of minutes, so she doesn't come out. When she does come out, it's like a minute or two just to get a break. But when you have her on the floor, she creates such a threat at the point of attack that she is going to really make the defense make tough decisions on how they're going to cover her. And not just her, it's the second and third options that she has out of the coverages that they're going to present. So I think for Caitlin Clark to be able to have a 27-point average, just over 8 assists and 7 rebounds per game, and being at the top of scouts and still being able to possess those gaudy numbers, I mean, that just speaks to her elite level of competitiveness.
What it is it's must-see TV. Right? I mean, we're talking about two household names, not just in women's basketball, but in sport. Two players who are known by not just women's basketball fans, but common fans. Two players whose entire college careers have been prolific, have been magnified, and they have both stepped up night in and night out and led their programs to championship levels. And what I like most about this is these aren't two people who compete against one another, right? They're two people who empower one another. They're two people who encourage the success of one another. And it's tough because when you're talking about Player of the Year candidates, we all get into the comparisons, and we have to. They don't, but they're not the same. They're not the same positions. They're not the same. All of those things. But I think when you look at what Caitlin Clark's body of work has been this year, you look at what Aaliyah Boston's body of work has been throughout her entire career. Certainly, she's probably going to be the #1 pick in the WNBA draft. I don't think we could have scripted a better matchup.
Absolutely. Give the people what they want, and this is what the people want. This is what us people up here want. It's interesting with Aaliyah Boston, who is this prolific player, the SEC Player of the Year, the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Boston isn't even the leading scorer on South Carolina, which just goes to show you the depth of this Gamecocks team, especially when it comes to rebounding the ball. That's a huge area where South Carolina has been elite. They average 18 offensive rebounds a game. Steph, how big of an impact is that going to have on this matchup?
It's huge. It's how they win ball games. They keep coming in waves. They have size at all positions. They have size coming off the bench. And really, you pick your poison when it comes to South Carolina. So what is the game plan? The game plan is to sag in, to make them shoot threes. When they make them, they're really, really hard to beat, as you can see by their record, and they have made them at a higher rate. If they don't, they're able to get second, third, and fourth opportunities. So finding ways, the teams that have made it close have found ways to close the gap in the rebounding battle. And then offensively, you have to be incredibly efficient because this is such a good defensive team in South Carolina, such a structured defensive team. You've got to be efficient. You can't go 3-4 empty possessions and expect to beat South Carolina. You have to play almost perfectly on the offensive end of the floor. Now, I think the way that Iowa can score from all 5 positions, the way that they can score from the three-point line, if they have a chance to trade threes for twos, they can keep themselves in this ballgame and give themselves a chance at the end.
I mean, we were talking about a team like South Carolina who is ravenous when it comes to their attack of the offensive glass. You have to be prepared to fight. You have to be prepared to maintain your contact on the glass and not give up those easy opportunities to get second and third chance opportunities at the bucket. So for Iowa, it sounds easy, right? It sounds easy. When the shot goes up, hunt a body, keep that contact. But this South Carolina team, they're going to keep coming after it. They're going to keep going for it. So you have to be at this level of just persistence when it comes to denying them what they want. And that's how you win games. You disrupt the rhythm that the other team wants to have. And for South Carolina, it starts on the glass and it ends on the glass. So I think it's going to be all about defense, and it's going to be all about boards in this contest. And yes, Iowa needs to make shots, but defensively, they have to be on their A game across the board. And that's counting starters and players off the bench. There can be no let up. There can be a minor margin of error when it comes to defensive responsibility.
Well, the Gamecocks have a plus 20 rebounding margin that leads the nation, which is absolutely incredible that they've been able to do that so consistently in a conference like the SEC, mind you, that is very physical. It's big, night in and night out. On that note, we know a lot about South Carolina's defense. We know about Aaliyah Boston. But, Steph, who else on South Carolina is going to be a concern?
Well, to me, when Bree Beal's hitting outside shots, it is really tough to handle, because Bree Beal can hit the outside shot. We know that Zai Cook can hit outside shots. And then you get scoring from multiple positions, right? And if you have interior defensive responsibilities, if you're Iowa, and you got to think about guarding Aaliyah Boston, and then you got to think about Camila Cardoso coming off the bench, right? And Letitia Ami here playing all 5 positions. You never really know like where she's going to come from. You know, the challenge is when South Carolina scores 3 and 4 players in double figures. And if they do that, they're really, really difficult to beat. So you got to find a way to lock in on the ones you're supposed to lock in on, to make sure you execute your game plan to a T. Multiple levels of effort, but there can't be any let up.
No. And Zia Cook, that's the one for me. I mean, Bree Beal, when she's hitting the shots, as she has been the last third of this season from the outside, that has changed the complexion of what South Carolina is wanting to do on the offensive side because of her ability to stretch the floor. But when you have Cook out there, I think she is the X factor for this team. I mean, she leads the team with 15 points a game, but that's why you have a player like Aaliyah Boston who doesn't need to lead the team in scoring, because they have so many complementary scores. Their balance on the offensive end is immense. So she doesn't need to score 30 a game because there are other people around her who are averaging in double-figure scoring. So for me, it's Cook. I mean, she is the X factor as much as Clark is for Iowa. When her presence is on the floor, it makes it different for what South Carolina looks like on the offensive side because of how she organizes the offense.
It's a good problem for Dawn Staley to have, that she just has so much talent on her bench that she can go 10 deep at times and keep bodies fresh. It's really remarkable what South Carolina has been able to put together. And at the same point, Coach Bluter told us this is not going to be a one-on-one defensive stop effort. Right. This is a team effort defensively. We have to box out. We must limit second chance opportunities. And I think what's going to be important is defending without fouling, because you have to keep bodies fresh. You cannot get Monica Sonato into a situation where she has to sit on the bench for extended minutes.
Yeah, that can't happen. And what Iowa likes to do, Steph, is run a triangle and 2 sometimes to alleviate some of that one-on-one, that player-to-player is what Lisa Bluter calls their man-to-man. That eliminates a lot of that angst. Yeah. You know, you don't want to have any
and some
foul
zone.
trouble.
You know, if you play some zone. But the hard part about playing zone is rebounding out of the zone, and then who do you check? Who do you box out?
Right.
Those are challenges that South Carolina, because of their ability to rebound from all 5 positions, present.
Well, it's going to be very exciting to see how that one shakes out.
Caitlin Clark deservedly gets a lot of headlines, but she is far from the only Hawkeye who's played really well this postseason. Backcourt mate Gabby Marshall's hit 50% of her threes in the Big Ten and NCAA tourneys, averaging more than 2 steals per game as well. Here's Megan with the Iowa senior.
You've had a couple of days now to adjust to being in Dallas. How have you been approaching the last couple of days as you prepare for this game?
Yeah, you know, I think we're just trying to soak in the moments. You know, I mean, this is obviously our first Final Four together, and we've been together so long that it's exciting. You know, we're so happy to be here. I think we've been trying to just explore Dallas and just have fun, you know, but when we're inside the lines, it's business and mission focus, and I think we've done a pretty good job of having fun and then mixing business in there. So, I mean, we're ready. I mean, we're just excited to finally play a game. So, yeah.
You mentioned you've been together so long. Your starting 5 has played 90 games together. But what's different this year in particular that you've been able to get to this point in the Final Four?
Yeah, I think obviously just another year of experience under our belt. And then I think this year we've really focused on mental toughness and mental resolve. And we've always talked about that, how it's going to be a battle every game, every night. And just having that mentally tough mentality, it's what's going to get you far, you know. And I think we've had that during this tournament run, and that's what's really helped us. us.
Speaking of mental toughness, you didn't start out the season shooting well from beyond the arc, but the last couple of months you have been on fire. How have you changed your mentality when it comes to shooting?
Yeah, I think it was just really my teammates and my coaches just keep believing in me, keep telling me to shoot, and then obviously it comes in that belief in yourself, just knowing that I am a great shooter, and honestly not feeling sorry for myself, not making excuses, but just doing something about it, getting in the gym, getting shots up, focusing on mechanics, and just, you know, trying to get over that hump, get out of that slump, and that's all you really can do when you're in that deep of a slump. So I'm glad I'm shooting it at the right time, though.
I think everyone's glad you're shooting at the right time. Thanks, Gabby.
Yeah, of course.
Our big stat presented by Gatorade. For the first time since 2009, all three finalists for the Hobie Baker Award, which is college hockey's equivalent of the Heisman, come from one conference, and that conference is the Big Ten. Logan Cooley and Matthew Nyes of Minnesota, Adam Fantilli of Michigan, the three still in the hunt for the award. The winner will be named next week at the Frozen Four, where both the Gophers and the Wolverines will be in action. And that gets us to our big interview. The head coach of Michigan, Brandon Naurato, joining us now. And Coach, let's start with this preparation for the Frozen Four. You got a lot of time between when you clinched your spot and when you get back on the ice again. Give people a sense of what this time period has been like, this off week.
Yeah, I think right after the regional, the most important thing is just the players resting their bodies, recovering a little bit, and then just getting back into it, our style of play, tactics, concepts, and then going into the week of the tournament, just stick to the normal routine and keep it consistent.
This has been a really weird year for Michigan hockey. You're the interim head coach, at least as of right now. You obviously had to make a change in the offseason. You had a ton of turnover on this team. You had such an experienced team a year ago when you were an assistant. It's obviously much different this season. What are you proudest of with this team for you personally to get to this moment?
I think I'm most proud of just the type of people that we have on this team, from our senior leadership with Nolan Moyle in that class, the leadership group. And then we got a lot of leaders in the freshman class that'll be future captains here. But I think the biggest thing about leading is you need to learn how to follow first. So just how close these guys have become. We have been through a lot, just like any team. But just dealing with all the adversity and just having that player and team first focus has been very rewarding.
You talk about the transition to leadership. It's been a transition for leadership for you, too. As I mentioned, you were an assistant coach at Michigan last year, and of course you played at Michigan, had a really good career there. But what was that transition like for you personally to somewhat unexpectedly, I would say, go from being an assistant to being the head coach here in the short span of a year?
Yeah, like it's not that big of an adjustment, and then it's a huge adjustment at the same time. I think a lot of new experiences came up, so just going through those and kind of learning through them, and then just reflecting on whether it worked or it didn't to make it right going forward. I'm just trying to be myself. I don't have some super secret plan, and I'm lucky to be surrounded with a great staff and a lot of great kids around us.
Who have you leaned on?
My wife. I've talked to a lot of coaches in hockey, outside of hockey, business leaders, but just family and just a lot of reflecting and trying to make the right decisions. But like I said, just trying to be myself and as we go through this.
Was there any advice that you got from anyone that particularly resonated with you?
I wish I had a really good story for you. Maybe Coach Harbaugh. I talked to him one time, but he just said, be yourself and don't listen to the critics. So I thought that was pretty good advice. Other than that, a lot of little things, a lot of cliche stuff that we would know, but there's value in hearing it again. And, just going about our business. I'd say for me, I worked at a company called Total Package Hockey when I first got done playing, and that experience of running a business, managing people, over a dozen full-time salary employees, and then starting a lot of new things in the hockey world. I think that's helped me out a ton in being the head coach at the University of Michigan.
To what extent did you need to get the players to buy into you personally, right? They did not come to Michigan to play for you. and yet here they are. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to ask them that question. I'd say, the guys that I was with as an assistant, you hope that you earn their trust every day just through your scope of work. I've recruited a lot of the guys that are in this freshman class. I've actually had relationships with them well before I was at Michigan, just working with a lot of these guys as younger players. And if I didn't work with them, I probably knew people that knew them. So I had an idea what type of people they were and how to communicate with them and gain their trust. In hopes of helping develop them as people and players. Yeah.
Is there something in particular you learned about yourself in this year?
I think you can handle anything, and failure is okay. You keep failing forward. We talk about that a lot with our players, but just going back to reflection and trying to do it the right way, always trying to be the best versions of ourselves. And Michigan sells itself, and the hockey program's been great for years. I'm not reinventing the wheel, just trying to be a piece of the puzzle and put our stamp on it. In 2023 with player development and just communication and trust and mental health in general. Just communicating with these players so we have an idea of who they are as people, and we can communicate with them properly to help them reach their goals.
Let's dive into your Frozen Four matchup a little bit with Quinnipiac. You guys lead the nation in goals. They allow the fewest goals per game of any team in the country, so there's kind of an obvious strength against strength matchup here. Give us a sense for the biggest challenges that they present.
Yeah, no, they're a really good team. We obviously had some experience of playing them last year in the tournament. Very defensive structure. They can score as well. They've got some good players. They had a senior class that I think all of them came back to take grad years except one player. So we know this team well. A lot of our guys played for Rand Pecknold in the World Juniors, so they know him pretty well. I don't think that's an advantage or a disadvantage, but it should be a great hockey game on Thursday night in Tampa.
Mentioned Adam Fantilli off the top when we were talking about the Hobie Baker. I mean, it's a pretty remarkable story for a freshman to be leading the nation in goals, or scoring, I should say. What has stood out to you about Fantilli and his performance this year as a first-year player in college hockey?
Yeah, just the type of person that he is, like his maturity for, he's technically a senior in high school that fast-tracked, and 18-year-old kid, plays a mature game, so competitive, wants to win every game that he's playing, whether it's in practice or on the weekends for Michigan. And that competitiveness, it's not just him, it's the entire team. These kids want to go to work every day, and that's what kind of drives us when we have that urgency to get after it.
Hockey is so interesting to me just in that a lot of players don't come directly from high school, right? So you have guys go play juniors, and kind of by its very nature, there are a lot of older players on the ice. So when you have someone like Adam Fantilli, again, like you mentioned, should be a senior in high school and playing against guys significantly older than him, are there challenges that presents, or like can kind of that almost the naivete to a certain extent, and I realize these guys played a ton of hockey growing up, but can that somehow work to his advantage?
Yeah, that's why it's so impressive what he's doing. He's doing it against 22, 23, 24-year-old men, and there's something to be said of more of that mature game. And even a player X that is a junior or senior in the Big Ten, he knows what the Big Ten referees call. He knows the style of game. There's maturity in their game, and Adam's figuring it out with a lot of these other freshmen for the first time, and I'd like to think that he's figured it out pretty quick. So, all credit goes to him.
Yeah,
he's done great.
I would say the proof's in the pudding there. It seems like he's kind of figured it out. It seems like your goalie, Eric Portillo, has figured things out here a little bit too down the stretch. It was a little bit of an up and down year for him, but he has been great here during this postseason run. What have you seen from him here down the stretch?
I would just say overall confidence. He's such an important part of our team, and the numbers probably don't really reflect the success that he's had this year. We had a really good conversation before the playoffs because he's a competitive kid as well, like all these guys, and he wants the most out of himself, wants to be the best version of himself. I just looked at him, I said, the goalie that wins in the end, that trumps all numbers, because he's far above the numbers that he has this year. He's an elite goaltender. He's going to play this game for a long time, and he's got his confidence going, and he's feeling good, and that's very important for Michigan.
Coach, what does it say about Big Ten hockey that every Hobey Baker finalist is from the Big Ten, that 2 of the 4 teams in the Frozen Four are from the Big Ten? What does that tell you about the league you play in?
Yeah, I think it's awesome for the league. It's been great, just the depth of the league. Every weekend, such a tough matchup, whether it's the number 1 team or the 7th place team in the league. I think even going into Christmas, we were in 6th place in the league, and, we had a couple games in hand, but, even with where Penn State finished and how they did in the regionals, every game's been tough. I think it's made every team that much better to play in those types of games and environments. And it's just great for the league overall.
What's it going to take for Michigan to win it all?
Just stick to our identity, win the net front, hunt, and be connected as a team.
Best of luck to you, Brandon Naurato. Thanks so much for your time, and congratulations on a really good year to this point. Among the Big Ten players who turned heads at the NFL Combine earlier this month in Indy, Illinois' Quan Martin put up some remarkable numbers, including a 44-inch vertical that was not only the best at this year's Combine, but also the 5th best in the history of the event. All this with an eye on the NFL Draft, which is April 27th through 29th. Quan Martin joining me now. Last few weeks before the draft, Quan, what's your schedule like?
Oh, man, it's been pretty crazy. Just setting up visits and stuff with a bunch of teams. And, just planning that out the whole month of April. So it's been pretty exciting.
What's this process been like for you from kind of the moment the season ended when you started preparing for the draft up until now?
It's just been constant work, man. Just getting ready for the combine and stuff. I had to go to the Senior Bowl. So just preparing for all of that, just day in and day out, just talking with different individuals. And I just put myself in the best shape as possible.
Has there been a highlight to it? Has been a part of it that's been most enjoyable?
The whole process has pretty much been enjoyable, man. Just preparing for the combine, just meeting with teams, going to the Senior Bowl, just showcasing my talent there against some of the best players in the country. And, just competing at the combine as well, just having the chance to showcase my ability.
I'm always interested in those meetings. What types of questions are they asking you?
Oh, man, you get a bunch of different questions, honestly. I haven't got too many crazy ones, honestly. A lot of people ask me that question, but I have yet to get a really crazy question.
So nothing totally out of left field, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be or anything like that?
No, I haven't got that one yet.
All right. Well, you better be prepared for that, right? That's that could be a make or break you one. Yeah. Hey, 44-inch vertical, I mentioned it. The 5th best in the history of the Combine. You think about all the amazing athletes who have been through the NFL Combine. It's not like, you're the 5th best in the history of your middle school, right? The 5th best in the history of the NFL Combine. Have you kind of wrapped your head around what that means?
I talked with my trainers just before I left to go to the Combine, and I knew I would jump high. I was kind of aiming for that record, honestly. So just to land 5th, it's still amazing just to be in that conversation.
When you've talked to teams, what have they said they like the most about you?
My versatility, just my ability to play any position in the back end, and just my willingness to tackle and go make plays on the ball in the air.
It's funny, Quan, I always like to look back at recruiting rankings. So you were ranked the 1,495th best player in your class, and now here you are, considered one of the better defensive backs heading into the NFL Draft. Why do you think you were so overlooked coming out of high school?
I don't know, honestly, man. I feel like it's always kind of been that way for me just throughout my whole career, man. And, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. So, just not letting those numbers define me as a player.
This team really struggled when you got to Illinois, and these last couple of years have been such an impressive turnaround. What's the biggest thing that Coach Bielema did to turn it in the right direction?
Just the faith. He just implemented around the program, his trust in the players and our trust in him. And, he just changed the mindset of a lot of guys, just having that expect to win mentality when we go out there and step on the field. So, just just he's an amazing coach. He's definitely touched a lot of guys throughout this program since he's been here.
Ryan Walters, of course, heading over to be the head coach at Purdue, but he was the defensive coordinator and got so much credit for turning the defense around. What makes him so good?
Just his unique way of calling plays, man. He just did that these past 2 years for us and just really put everybody in the best position possible. He really just built the defense around the players he has. So, he just put everybody in a great position, and we just went out and executed.
Was there a moment when those guys got to Champaign where you kind of realized, hey, this is going to be different, we're going to be good, we're going to be more competitive?
Since day one, honestly, man, I just remember the first conversation that Coach B had when he addressed the team that Sunday after the season had ended. When he got the job, he came in, he talked to the team, and I was definitely like, this is really a guy that I would love to play for. So, just day one from when all the coaches came inside the building.
Was there something in particular you said, or like kind of what was it that resonated with you that made you say, especially in this time where it's so easy to pick up and leave,
yeah.
What was it that made you decide to stay?
Just the way he approached us, and he just gave everybody the opportunity to come back another year. And, just his understanding of the game and just his resume, I was definitely like, this is someone I want to play for.
Have you thought at all about kind of this journey that you've been on here? I mean, to go from this reasonably overlooked player. It wasn't like you were totally off the radar. You had a scholarship to Illinois, but not someone who people thought necessarily would be in this spot, to now talking to NFL teams and preparing for the draft and setting records at the combine and all of that. When you reflect on it, what do you think about?
It was always something I knew about myself, man. Just constantly reminding myself who I was as a person. And, it was a lot of ups and downs throughout the process. So just not letting those situations define me as a player. And I just knew the end goal I had in mind, and, it was there for me. So
I know your goal right now, Quan, is to go to the NFL, but I understand you have a heavy interest in cooking and hope maybe at one point to become a professional chef as well. Tell us about your culinary skills.
Yeah, so I just grew up in the kitchen, watching my mom, my grandma, all my parents cook and stuff. So I just kind of grew a love for cooking from there. And, I used to tell my mom I wanted to be a chef when I was growing up. So, football kind of took over, but I'll definitely get into some kind of cooking later on in life.
So what's your specialty? Like if we said, hey, give us your best dish, the thing you do the best, what is that?
Man, I can name a few, but I like soul food.
Okay.
Thanksgiving meals, like macaroni, baked macaroni and cheese and stuff like that. So.
All right. Do you have a special macaroni and cheese recipe? Like, is there something that separates your macaroni and cheese from the run-of-the-mill pedestrian macaroni and cheese?
Hey, I got it from my grandma, man. Those grandmas can make that macaroni and cheese. It's definitely the top of the top.
All right, I understand that on top of that, you're a pretty good barber as well. Where did you hone your barber skills?
So I actually taught myself on YouTube during COVID. So, I started off cutting my own hair, and then started cutting my roommate's hair. And then from there, just like everybody on the team was asking for haircuts. So, it was days I was cutting hair for 2 or 3 hours a day. So, that's kind of how, this whole journey started for me. And I've been cutting my own hair for 3 years now. So.
All right. So if someone said to me, hey, I'm going to cut your hair, I learned how to do it on YouTube, I'm just not sure that I would be lining up to do that. Did you need to convince them at all that, no, seriously, I know what I'm doing, but I just watched a video?
Yeah, a little bit. It was more of so I started off cutting my own hair for a while.
All right.
Like a year. So once they saw that I was pretty good at doing it myself, they was like, all right, I'm gonna give you a shot. So it really just started with my roommates. And then from there, my roommates would walk into the stadium like, oh man, cut your hair. Oh, Quan cut my hair. So everybody was just trying to come and get a haircut. So it was just word of mouth.
All right, well, Quan, congratulations on all your accomplishments at Illinois. I think we'll be seeing you in the NFL before we're seeing you run your barbershop or run your own restaurant, but it's pretty cool, all the diverse things that you've gotten yourself into, and it's really been fun to watch you and this rise of the Illinois football program these last couple of years. Best of luck in the draft, and thanks for spending some time with us.
All right, man. Thank you for having me.
Welcome back here to American Airlines Center. Stephanie White, Christy Winter-Scott, Megan McEwen here with you. This is going to be a fascinating matchup from the standpoint of Dawn Staley, the Naismith Coach of the Year of South Carolina, and Lisa Bluter of Iowa, who's been fantastic, more than 800 wins in her career. Christy, what are you expecting to see tactically from these coaches?
Well, tactically speaking, when you're looking at what Iowa likes to do, they have a very thick book of plays. And when they're coming out of timeouts, they execute to perfection. In the quarter court, they love to spread you out and lull you to sleep and catch you on a backdoor cut. So I think for Lisa Bluter, I mean, she has been in this game with Iowa for 23 years and 38 years overall. So she has a wealth of experience. So when you have that level of experience, but also the understanding of each role on the team and how important it is to have everyone playing their role at their best, it's going to be fun to see that. But Dawn Staley, I mean, she has Olympic gold medal experience with her. She has the understanding of her team as well after winning the championship last season. So it's going to be a really great test of wares, and I can't wait. It's going to be chess, not checkers, and you better be ready to go, and it's going to be fun to see who comes out on top.
Chestnut checkers, I don't know that I know what that is.
Chestnut checkers?
The
Chess
phrase?
means chestnut checkers.
Chess, not checkers. Okay,
Chess,
yeah, I
not
got
checkers.
you now.
Oh, wait,
you
yeah,
kind of blended that together, so I was like, I'm not sure what kind of game you're talking about right
No, I'm
there.
talking about you see things like
yes.
4 steps
Chess,
ahead, and then
not
you strike
checkers.
around.
Yep, I get that.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, I think she's absolutely right. And you know, one of the things that I think Dawn Staley's going to come with a game plan is just making sure that you're disruptive on the perimeter, because Iowa is a rhythm offense. And if you can find a way to disrupt that rhythm, to get them out of sync, to make sure you're quick on rotations, to not allow those backdoor cuts, to push them out beyond the three-point line, to make them uncomfortable, to force them to put the ball on the floor 1 or 2 extra times. And this is a team in South Carolina that has the ability to do that. I think Dawn Staley challenges this team to be on their best defensive effort, best defensive execution, but I certainly look for them to be a little bit more disruptive.
I certainly look for them to. I love a coach that loves defense. Appreciate that in someone. Also, look, South Carolina takes excellent care of the ball. 12 turnovers a game, that is absolutely fantastic.